Hi everyone, this is Julianne Victoria of Through the Peacock's Eyes. Welcome to my channel. This is the video discussing the Rahu Ketu transit through the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius, which begins in March 2019 and goes through September 2020. And I will discuss how that affects each astrological sign. So I will have timestamps below in the description box, but I do recommend listening to this little intro discussing what these energies mean before you skip ahead. On that note, because this is from the Vedic Astrology or Sidereal Zodiac perspective, I recommend listening to your ascendant sign, or sometimes it's called rising sign, as well as your moon sign. If you don't know your Vedic Astrology ascendant and moon signs, which in most cases will be different from your Western, although there is a small overlap there, you can go and Google search a free online Vedic astrology calculator and punch in your birth information. You do need time of birth or as close to a birth time as you can get to get an accurate ascendant sign. If you don't have a birth time, there's no way to get it. You can punch in just the default time of noon and at least get your moon sign. The ascendant sign that comes up may not be accurate for you, but you can at least get your moon sign unless your moon is on the cusp between two signs. But for most people, you should be able to at least get your moon sign. Another way to figure out your Vedic astrology signs, if you have your Western astrology chart and you have the degrees on there, or you can, again, do a free online Western astrology calculator, you can subtract 25 degrees. And there's many Vedic ones, so you shouldn't have to do this, but you can always just subtract about 25 degrees from all the degrees and get your Vedic chart. Okay, I did make a video quite a few years ago now, discussing a lot of the major differences between Western astrology and Vedic astrology. Of course, it's not all of them. It's like, I don't know, a 10-15 minute video. But it does sort of give you an idea of how they are different, but also how they are similar. And I'll link that on screen here for you guys towards the end of this video. Okay, on to Rahu and Ketu. So Rahu, which is the north node, and Ketu, which is the south node. And I should mention, we call them planets, but they're not physical bodies. They are points on where the path of the moon intersects with the path of the sun. So they're called points on the moon's ecliptic. And when the sun and moon hit those points, that's when eclipses occur. So Rahu and Ketu are said to, well, they cause eclipses, but they're said to eclipse planets they're conjoined in a natal chart. But that's more for a personal reading. Just giving you a little background here as best as I can sum it up for you. Rahu, so here in this chart, and this chart that I pulled up that you're seeing here is not any human being's chart or a chart for any particular thing. It's just a chart for the time when the nodes move out of Cancer and Capricorn. So the nodes always move retrograde in a chart. So they've been in the sign of Cancer and the sign of Capricorn for the past year and a half. And they are now on March 23rd, 2019 at 12:30 a.m. So just after midnight, they move into the signs of Gemini and the signs of Sagittarius. You can see they're at 29 degrees, 29 minutes. And because they move retrograde, they start at the end of the sign. So they're not at 0 degrees, they're at 29 degrees. I hope that's making sense there. Okay, so Rahu represents, in the natal chart, represents karma we came into this life to create. And by karma, I mean experiences your soul wants to have, lessons your soul wants to learn, experiences to trigger personal growth, spiritual growth, to help us to remember God, to remember that we are divine, basically. And that's a many lifetime process where our souls are here to experience the human experience, to know itself. So Rahu, representing karma we came into this life to create, we may fulfill that in this lifetime, but it may take many lifetimes to fulfill that karma, as in to learn those lessons, to have a full understanding of those experiences. Now, Rahu also represents drive, ambition, often described as material drive and ambition. It's the head of the snake. And as the head, Rahu can have very stubborn and headstrong energy. Rahu also represents illusions, delusions, getting lost in fantasy, as well as addiction. So I always point out everything in astrology, as everything in this physical realm of duality, has both positive and negative aspects. Some, in some people's charts, it, may indicate that it leans more one way or the other. But then we have free will. And I just recorded a video talking about choices and manifestation, and how our, basically our free will can affect things. And maybe I'll link that on screen at the end here too. But our choices, our free will, can alter the path of do our lives, do our karmic experiences lean more towards those, what we consider positive experiences and aspects, or more towards the negative. So nothing is totally set in stone. There's definitely stronger energies for things, and most of us sway to those stronger energies. But we have an element of control with our free will and choices. So I want to point that out there. Okay, but Rahu is very headstrong energy, to sum that up. Okay, now Ketu. Ketu represents, in the natal chart, past life karma that we have experienced, that we have had many lifetime experiences in, lessons that we have already learned. There still may be a little bit here and there, but Ketu's often thought of as innate knowledge and wisdom that we have from those past life experiences. Sometimes I call him the been there, done that planet. Like, you get that area of life wherever he is in your natal chart. You get what it is, let's say it's in your 4th house, of what it is to have a family and in a home and stuff. And so your focus in this lifetime would be the opposite, which would be the 10th house in this example, where it's like a lot of focus on career, a lot of drive, a lot of ambition in career, because that's where Rahu is, or would be if this were your chart. Ketu, so besides past life knowledge, innate wisdom, that innate knowledge, that just knowing and understanding whatever area of life he is in your chart, he also represents deep spiritual seeking. And Ketu, Rahu as well, but especially Ketu, has sort of a withdrawal and separation energy at times in our lives. And that's because of that spiritual seeking energy that he carries. Now, where Rahu is the head of the snake, Ketu is the body or the tail. Though it represents deep spiritual seeking, there's this need to connect back into the body. And of course, this would depend on your natal chart if you have a struggle between those two things. Okay, so that's just a little summary of Rahu and Ketu energy. So let's talk about how this transit through Gemini and Sagittarius, and again, that begins on March 23rd, 2019, affects each person individually depending on your ascendant or moon sign. And again, you can listen to this as your ascendant sign and as your moon sign to get both perspectives. Okay, so let's start with the sign of Gemini. So Gemini ascendant or Gemini moon, Mithuna, Rahu is in your 1st house, so 1st house of Gemini. Ketu is in your 7th house of relationships, so the opposing houses. That's the axis that he's I want to say dancing in for you guys, Gemini. The 1st house is the house of the self, the individual, the personality. And the 7th house is the house of the other. So it's you and the other. So the 7th house, house of the other, house of relationships, house of how you relate to other people as well. Specifically, 7th house is the house of spouse or your partner. But because it's a house of relationships, it encompasses all your very close relationships, best friends, business partners, very close coworkers, your close-knit circle, not casual acquaintances. That's your 11th house. So Rahu and Ketu on this 1st 7th house axis. Rahu in your 1st house can make you very driven, very headstrong, stubborn, to be you, to express who you are, to, and of course, this will depend on your natal chart. If you know, and your choices, whether the more positive or negative plays out. But it could make you sort of so driven to be you, and for some, do what you want, that you might step on the other where Ketu is. It could push other people away. So this is where like the Ketu withdrawal energy as a transit, it can kind of separate things or people away from you. And it may be that some Geminis, this is what you want to do as well, right? Not every Gemini will experience this exactly the same way. But you may find yourself wanting to withdraw from, you know, 7th house energy. This is not your chart, of course, but 7th house energy. I just did that because that's 7th house, and that's what I normally do when I'm doing a reading. May make you want to, or influence you to want to withdraw from relationships. Now, that doesn't mean you break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend and you ignore everyone. You may still be involved, but you'll want to have more time for yourself. So this can also mean there's a lot of personal growth coming for you this year with Rahu in your first. Understanding what you want to do. You know, karma means action, what you want to do as the individual that you are. And sometimes we need time away from, you know, our partners, our best friends, our relationships, to withdraw and turn within to understand that. So there's this dynamic between your 1st and 7th house with the focus of you being able to express and be, I want to say be the best you can be, that little saying. But that's kind of the energy here. How do you want to be you? Now, again, the drawback is some Geminis might feel or might act in this process as stepping on the others, stepping on those you're in relationship with, or just others in general. So catch yourself if you're someone who tends to be a bit of a bulldozer, or you're just a little overbearing. But do really be you. This is like a breakout with Rahu in your 1st house. Again, it's for a year and a half until September 2020. So it's not all going to happen like in March. It's going to be a process to really, I want to say, to get to know yourself really well. Okay. And don't feel bad, you know, if you just say, you know, I just need some time for myself. Again, it doesn't mean you break up with your relationships and you kick everyone away. But I will also point out, sometimes with a Ketu transit through the 7th, that the universe just sort of makes it happen so you have more time alone. And that could be like your best friend moves to another country, your spouse starts a new job and so they have to commute and they're gone longer. So like sometimes you're given that extra time and space to focus on who you are and who you really want to be, to get to know yourself, to be the best you can be. All right, Gemini. Moving on. Let's move on to Cancer. So Cancer, Rahu is in your 12th house and Ketu is in your 6th house. So Rahu in the 12th house. 12th house is the house of the psyche and the unconscious. It includes things like shamanism, hypnotherapy, but also yoga and meditation, deep spiritual seeking. And here we have Rahu transiting your 12th house. That can bring a lot of drive and energy to pursue a lot of that. So pursue a lot of deep psychological introspection, self-reflection. That can involve shadow work, understanding your archetypes, shamanic journeying, you know, hypnotherapy, which actually you could use for past life regression, deep meditation practices. Like the drive of Rahu could make you want to be like, oh, I want to try Vipassana, and then I want to try Shamatha meditation, and then transcendental meditation. Like a lot of drive to really explore all these 12th house subjects. 12th house is also the house of the dream world. So some of you may be like, oh, I want to understand my dreams and what it's all about. And this, you know, really just digging into all this intangible stuff. And as I mentioned, 12th house is also a house of yoga, the spiritual practice, and that could drive you to go to yoga twice a day. Like it could be a little bit of overdoing it if you're not careful. but it is great drive and energy to explore all these deep psychological and spiritual aspects of yourself. Okay, now Ketu is transiting through your 6th house, and 6th house is a house of work, health, service, hygiene, your hobbies, pets, to sum that up there. When it comes to health with Ketu there, with Rahu, of course, being opposite in the 12th house, if you find yourself overdoing it, exploring, like, let's say you're doing 2 yoga classes a day and you're doing it too much, Ketu is going to pull you back and say, you know, you got to stop. You got to take a break. You got to withdraw. And that might happen by you pull a muscle and you can't practice yoga. So it's really important to keep that balance with your, we'll call it enthusiasm is what I'm feeling. Enthusiasm for spiritual pursuits. You know, that could be like you're going to meditate 2 hours a day, every day, no matter what. And you're neglecting your sleep. So Ketu's going to pull you back, and then all of a sudden you can't meditate and you're frustrated. Why? So you want to find that balance between this enthusiasm, which is actually the perfect word because enthusiasm is entheos, into God, into spiritual things. This enthusiasm into understanding the deeper aspects of yourself, so your psychology and spirituality and so on. And also with Ketu in that 6, taking care of your health, maintaining a solid daily routine that can support, because Ketu is the spiritual seeker in your 6th house. He wants to support the Rahu enthusiasm in your 12th. So don't neglect your health and daily routines, your needs, in the process. Okay. Now, 6th house being a house of work and service, and Ketu transiting there, it could, I'm not really feeling like that's carrying over into your career, because sometimes 6th house, because it's work, can overlay into career. That's really going to depend on each individual's chart. But with so much energy on this 6th and 12th house axis, it's likely that many Cancers will start incorporating your spiritual enthusiasm, what you learn, what you experience, into your work and career path in some way. Okay, but again, that's how and if that does affect your career will really depend on each of your individual charts. Okay, moving on. Leo. Rahu is transiting your 11th house and Ketu is transiting your 5th house. So Rahu in your 11th house, the 11th house is your social house. So friends, acquaintances, network. So that includes, like, you know, your business network, your personal network. It's also a house of gains from your career. And with network, that of course means things online nowadays, your social networks, right? So not just in person, but through the computer, through the internet work. Okay, so Rahu's transiting this house. 11th house, I should also mention, is a house of ambition, and Rahu is very ambitious and driven. So one, there's a lot of drive to bring in gains from your career, to make those connections, to build your work network, your personal network, your social network. So that could make it a very social year or a very socially expansive year for Leos out there. I can see you like really, like socializing and connecting more, with the ambition that it brings you some gains in some way. Okay. Ketu transiting your 5th house. So 5th house, which is the natural Leo house, right? So 5th house is the house of doing what you love, your house of your passion, the house of what you're driven to do in your heart, right? It's also a house of romance and creativity and children. And with Ketu transiting there, so especially those Leos whose children are getting older, like maybe they're in middle school, high school, or they've moved on, this is a sign of, separating away from children to put more focus on your social life or your networking and your gains from your career. So that would be if that's your natural life progression. Of course, if you have small children, this is not indicating you're going to neglect your children for that. It really depends, of course, on each person and your stage of life, of course. Now, Ketu also transiting the 5th house, because he represents the past. So I should mention, as a transit, he represents, you know, the past. It's not just past lives, but transit-wise, it can represent past in this life. That there are things that you have created, started to create, or wanted to create in the past that now are being exposed. Like, so Ketu is here, the opposite, 11th house where Rahu is transiting, exposing it out to the public. 11th is a very public house, exposing it out through the internet, exposing it out with your circle of friends, your acquaintances or work network. So it's like bringing something to light, to public, to the people that you have created in the recent past or long in the past. So this could be, Leo, you're a very creative sign. Let's say you wrote a book and now you want to put it out there, bits on a blog, and expose it and build a social network around it. So that's kind of an example of what that energy is. When it comes to 5th house representing romance and Ketu there, Ketu can separate. So not that this means, if you're single, you won't date and there won't be romance. But with the head, with Rahu in that 11th social house, it would be a little more superficial. Or it could just be, with this transit, you're just out hanging out with friends a lot and there's less romance in your life. Now, if you're in a relationship, that doesn't mean poof, the relationship is dead and done and gone. It's just there's more focus on friends and being out there and networking than on having date nights and, bringing flowers to your partner and stuff. Doesn't mean none of that's there, but there's this sort of like this focus more on doing stuff with friends or connecting with your online community and things like that. So don't fret. Doesn't mean there's absolutely no romance. But with Ketu transiting the 5th, if you're dating, if you're looking for someone, that transit can mean you can meet a very deeply spiritual person as well. So if that's what you're looking for, this is a great transit for that. Okay, moving on to Virgo. So Virgo, Rahu is transiting your 10th house of career, and Ketu is transiting your 4th house of home, family, property, which is interesting, as 4th house is also house of past lives, and Ketu represents past lives, and transit-wise can represent some of the past, so it could be past experiences with your family. It's also a house of ancestors. The houses are stacked with things. I tried to sum it up for you guys here. So Rahu transiting your 10th house of career, I always feel, and of course it does depend on your birth chart and how this lays on your chart, but Rahu in the 10th is usually a great transit because he's the head, he's ambition, he's material drive, he's focus. In the house of career, where you want to be driven, Rahu is karma, and 10th house is the house of karma. It's what you do. A lot of drive and energy to grow your career, advance your career. If you're young, starting your career, really making headway in your career. So an excellent year for that. Now, Ketu transiting your 4th house of, again, home, family, ancestors, past lives, mother. There just may be less time. So what I'm feeling is less time for family, either the family you come from or the family you have created, more strongly the family you come from, but family in general. Less time for family because there is so much more energy focused on your career path. Now, that doesn't mean you're neglecting your family completely. There's just a shift of emphasis for this transit to really build and grow and advance your career. So if you do find that you're just work, and your family, it's like, we never see you, make sure you work in that balance. Make sure you bring it together. And with Ketu being, the spiritual seeker, it could be, you plan family meditation time, or you go to church or temple or whatever it is, or you just have very meaningful time with your family when you have the time to be with your family. Okay. Now, again, as I mentioned, fourth house is also a house of past lives. Ketu represents past lives. This could be personally a time where you're experiencing the understanding of past life experiences. Now, that doesn't mean you're like remembering your past lives, but it's that innate knowledge and wisdom that Ketu brings in when it comes to family and home life, but also property. It's like this is supporting. It's like you understand how to connect to your family when you have less time, because there's so much focus on your career. I hope that's making sense. But if you are a Virgo who finds, this coming year and a half that, wow, I have so much work to do, I'm not spending quality time with your family, make sure the time you spend with them is quality time, and especially, spiritual time or religious time, depending on, what your family, what your spiritual path is, that it's really meaningful time together. That's what is more important than, stressing about not having 6 hours a day to spend with your family. Make the time together as meaningful as possible, and that will help keep this balance between career and home life. Okay, Virgo. Libra. So Libra, Rahu is transiting your third house. Ninth house. Ketu is transiting your third house. So Rahu in your ninth house, Libra. Ninth house is the house of religion, spirituality, life philosophy. It's also a house of politics, legal things, higher education, which could be university. It could also be spiritual education. So you have Rahu transiting this ninth house. Oh, it's also a house of foreign travel. I try to sum up what the houses mean. You can find giant lists for all the houses. House of foreign travel as well. So Rahu is here. So some Libras, depending on how this lays on your natal chart, if you have planets here and so on, may feel a lot of drive, a lot of ambition to go travel the world or go to a foreign country that you've always wanted to. And that may be, and often is, combined with your personal growth, your religious path, your spiritual path, something that aligns with your life philosophy. But it doesn't have to. It could just be, I want to travel for the next year or so. So there's a strong drive towards those areas of life. And for some, it will be more spiritual and religious, and others, it may be you're going to law school, so higher education and legal things, so you can get into politics. And if that's the case, then this is excellent for you. Of course, you're Libra, so not that every Libra is into law, but that does work really well if you're that energy really resonates with you. But again, you could also be like, this year's the year I'm going to travel around Asia or South America, whatever it is. So you have headstrong energy to accomplish that in this next year and a half. Now, Ketu is transiting your third house. So third house is the house of communication, short distance travel. So things like commuting to work or somewhere where you can drive in a few hours, a little weekend trip. But for the most part, it's communication. It also encompasses neighbors and siblings, like people on your same level, sometimes generation level, neighbors, locational level. But it's really also how you communicate them and your communities, all those COM words. And communications can be verbal communications, written communication. It is also a house of writing. And we have Ketu here. Okay, so what I'm feeling with the Ketu energy when it comes to past experiences, so as a transit, it could be past experiences in this lifetime, not just past life experiences, that some Libras either have already started this or will want to write about their life experiences, even their spiritual experiences. like your story, your memoir, your own lessons, your own karmic lessons that you have learned. Some Libras, this feels really strong. So maybe it's like a common thread through a lot of Libras out there. But telling your story, so like in a book or on a blog, or maybe it's like YouTube vlogs, but telling your story and communicating that out to other people. And for some, it may be just, among your siblings and neighbors, your close-knit community. But for others, it may be out there. And it may be out there that's also supported. I'm pointing as if this were a chart, but it's not. I'm just used to doing that for client readings. It's out there because Rahu in your ninth house also represents publication. So for those who have written something or want to post something online in some way, self-publish it, like a blog or vlog or whatever, you can put it out there. You can expose it to people around the globe in foreign countries. If you want to share your story, that feels very strong. So that must be a message for a hunk of Libras out there. It won't be for every Libra, but it feels very strong, telling your story. But also, Ketu in your third house of communication. I am feeling that some Libras may feel like, because Ketu can withdraw, that you want to pull away from meaningless communication, from unmeaningful conversations like gossiping and, I don't know, bashing email threads, whatever it may be. Just a withdrawal from the nonsense, basically, in any form of communication, or even nonsense among neighbors. That's what I'm getting there. Okay, let's move on. Scorpio, Rahu is transiting your 8th house. 8th house is a house of death, change, transformation, all that is hidden, all that is occult, all that is underground, so secret, non-mainstream and unconventional, you can even say. And Ketu is transiting, 8th house is also house of loss. Ketu is transiting your 2nd house. 2nd house is house of money, gains, finances, your possessions. I like to call it the house of your stuff. It's a very material house, where 8th house is strongly non-material. So you have them on this axis here. So Rahu, again, like headstrong ambition, drive, karma, what you want to do, stubbornness, in this 8th house of transformation. Now this could, for some Scorpios, because you're Scorpio and you're the natural ruler of the 8th house, right? So this stuff resonates with you. You may, I want to say, dive right into the deep end for whatever inner or outer transformative process, major changes in your life that are going on, or that you have wanted to and want to happen now. Like you would be like driving in head first, basically. Diving in head first into the deep. So again, deep transformative process within, working with shadow aspects, your journey into the underworld and back, your dark night of the soul. You may be like gung-ho. I'm going to do it. This resonates with me. I'm going to figure this out. So a lot of drive. I will caution that it could be a little bit overdone. So you want to make sure you come up to the surface to breathe once in a while. And again, that can play out in like, I want to bring about this major change in my life. It's going to happen. The stubborn energy is coming through. So don't bulldoze other people to bring about the changes in your life. Remember that they're there too, and respect their needs as well. But this does mean you can bring about major change in your life that you have wanted to take or bring about internally and externally. It can also be because 8th house is the mystical, metaphysical, the occult, the esoteric. It's also a house of research, that you may dive again head first deep into researching all these things like astrology or tarot or crystal healing or whatever it may be, in the occult metaphysical realm. So the non-mainstream, the unconventional religious and spiritual paths. A lot of Scorpios, you're really going to dive headstrong into that. Okay. And for some, I will point out, it may be understanding, because this is house of death and loss, understanding the dynamics of life and death and the afterlife. You know, it could be like studying to be a medium, to connect to past loved ones and so on. So a strong, I mean, you naturally have it, Scorpio, but an even stronger interest to dive as deep as you can into those areas of your life. Okay, all right, Scorpio. So Ketu is transiting your second house. So Ketu, again, past life experience, innate knowledge in the natal chart, but as a transit can be the past of this life, spiritual seeking, and an energy of withdrawing. So he's transiting through your second house of money, gains, and finances. So of course the nodes work with each other. Rahu and Ketu work with each other. So as you dive deeper into 8th house energies, I'll just sum it up that way. You may withdraw or have less interest in material things, which is very normal. Less interest in gaining more possessions. So you might want to be like, you know, give away excess stuff, give away the stuff that's piling up, so you can dive deeper and research the things you want to, right? So you can go about the change in your life, so you can free yourself up for your transformation. This doesn't mean you'll be irresponsible financially and you know, throw everything away, you know, willy-nilly, but there's just more of an interest in the deeper stuff, which you naturally have, but it's even stronger than in, you know, trying to buy more stuff or getting new clothes or, you know, investing your money to get more gains. Doesn't mean it's not there. It's just the emphasis is a little shifting away from the material to the metaphysical, to the transformational, to the esoteric. Okay. What else do I want to say with K2 there? That's the strongest energy for sure. And it may also be that gains just naturally come in because of action you've taken in the past. So it could be, I'm actually getting energy of some unexpected gains coming in for some Scorpios. Gains from family. So the second house can be a house of inheritance, things you gain from the family you're born into, from being born into who you are, because it's second house from the first. Yeah, some may actually get gains from family. It could be inheritance. That doesn't mean anyone has to die. It could be gifts, could even be winnings, but that doesn't feel very strong. But just gains that are owed to you from the past. That's how it feels. And it may be unexpected. It may be you didn't think it was going to happen, or you just never thought about it, and then there it is. Okay. All right, Scorpio. Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, Rahu is transiting through your 7th house of relationships, and Ketu is transiting through your 1st house of the self. So Rahu in the 7th. So 7th is relationships, specifically it's spouse, but it's all your closest relationships and how you view the concept of relationship, you in relationships. And then 1st house, you, the individual, the person, the personality, the self. So Rahu in your 7th, there is a drive. There is, I want to say a deep, maybe not deep, but a strong desire to be in a relationship. So if you're already in a relationship, Sagittarius, this will make you, we always talk how like the planets are controlling us, but it's just energies we're working with. You may feel a very strong energy to really put more time and energy into the relationships you're in. So spouse, partner, boyfriend, girlfriend. But again, your closest relationships could be business partners, best friends, things like that. Really want to understand your relationships, understand how you are in the relationship, how you can better your relationships. Now, again, Rahu is a very headstrong energy. So for some Sagittarius, you'll have to check yourself, because the negative side would be controlling your relationships with that headstrong energy. So keep yourself in check. But there is a lot of emphasis on relationships. So if you're single Sagittarius, you may just have this strong desire, like, oh, I just really want to meet that person now, or If you're seeing someone like, oh, I really just want to get married. And it may happen with this transit. This Rahu transit can be an indicator that this is the time for that to happen. So just make sure you're not trying to control your relationships, whether you're single now or not. And just enjoy your relationships. Now, Ketu is transiting your first house of the self, the individual, the personality. And Ketu has, as I mentioned, a withdrawal energy, a pulling away energy. I would say be careful, Sagittarius, not to withdraw from who you are. Don't withdraw your sense of self and lose yourself in your relationship. Now, if you're a Sagittarius that has put more emphasis on yourself than the other, ideally it's balanced, right? But if you've been too focused on you and what you want to do and hoped your relationships would just follow along with you, this energy is actually going to help balance that out. But I am just feeling a strong energy in Sagittarius. Just don't lose yourself completely in your relationship. Maintain your sense of who you are. And Ketu, as a spiritual seeker, is remember to have a regular practice to connect back to yourself, so you can balance out all this strong energy that's going into your relationships or your desire for a relationship, or just all your energy, personal time energy going into your relationships. Okay, I hope that's making sense there. Let me take a sip of water here. Okay, Capricorn. So Capricorn, Rahu is transiting your 6th house of work, service, health, your daily routine, hobbies. And Ketu is transiting your 12th house of the unconscious, the psyche, yoga, meditation, the dream world. So Rahu in your 6th house of health. That's usually where I focus the energy on the 6th house, because our daily routine affects ourselves. The house of hygiene, being of service of other people is good for our health. So Rahu in your 6th house, Capricorn. You probably will naturally feel this, but put a lot of focus on your health this year. Put a lot of focus on, are you exercising enough or too much? Because you're naturally very disciplined, right? Do you need to make modifications in your diet? Do you need to hydrate better? Do you need to structure your daily routine in such a way that you get better sleep, or you can have that time to exercise, or whatever it is you feel you need to do for your health? Focus on your health routine, your health habits, the hobbies that you do. And I don't want to say ask yourself if they are beneficial or detrimental to your health. That feels like a very specific message for some Capricorns out there. And if this is something you want to do, how can you be of service to other people, and how can you work that into your everyday routine? I am get the feeling that some Capricorns, like, helping other people is going to be very beneficial for your well-being. Maybe not your physical health, but like your overall well-being. Being of service, helping other people out, even if it's like helping out a family member on a regular basis, or it could be like volunteering service. I feel that's an important key for your overall well-being. Now, Ketu is transiting your 12th house, again, the psyche, the unconscious, the dream world, yoga, meditation, spiritual seeking. Ketu is very happy here because he's the spiritual seeker. And working on the axis, the dynamic with the 6th house. Yeah. Very strong energy, Capricorn, to make your spiritual practices a part of your everyday routine. And they'll be deepening. Well, there's a deepening of your spiritual practices, and you're going to have to figure out how to make them a part of your everyday routine, whether it's 10 minutes or an hour every day, to bring those spiritual practices in. So it could be, I want to start practicing yoga and meditation daily. I want to, 12th house, the psyche, psychology, the subconscious. I want to go and talk to, if you need to, a therapist once a week and have that regular schedule in my routine because it's good for my emotional and mental health and well-being, which is also what 12th house is about. So it's a lot of emphasis on, I want to say well-being much more than health. Well-rounded mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health and well-being, and structuring that in your everyday or your weekly or your monthly schedule. And that includes, for some Capricorns, some sort of service to another. Again, it could be just, helping out a family member or volunteering and so on. Yeah, I feel with this transit, a lot of Capricorns can really, really achieve a sense of well-roundedness. A lot of balance in physical, mental, emotional, spiritual self. Okay, Capricorn. Aquarius. Aquarius, Rahu is transiting your 5th house of creativity, children, the house of your passions and doing what you love. And Ketu is transiting your 11th house of your social house, your friends, your acquaintances. It's also a house of gains from your career, your network, whether it's career, business, or personal, social. It encompasses all of that. So Rahu in the 5th. Yeah. Aquarius, create, create, create. Rahu's that drive and ambition, headstrong energy in this house of creativity. For those who want to create children, this is, depends on how this lays on your natal chart, what planets you have there, and so on. But this transit can bring in a lot of drive. Like, I want to have children, or I want to work with children. I want to, whatever it is, energy with children. But creating is the stronger energy here. So for those of you who are trying to get pregnant or hoping to get pregnant this year, this is an isolated transit, but it is a good one right now. But ask yourself, Aquarius, what is it you love to do? What is it you are passionate about? This Rahu energy is going to give you energy to pursue those. And I want to say, don't talk yourself out of it. I feel like that's important to say. Don't talk yourself out of it about following your creative passion. Whether you're an artist or you like to create, I don't know, schedules, you like to organize people's closets, that's what's coming to mind. But what are you passionate about? What do you want to create for yourself in your life? You may want to share it with other people, you may not. But it's important to really focus on that this year. Doesn't mean you're ignoring everything else in your life, but that needs to be a focus. And I'm getting a feeling that it's going to support stuff later on. Okay. Yeah, like down the line. So this is a time to, take this Rahu energy, get going on your creative project, get going on what you're passionate about, even if it's like a hobby that will someday turn into a career. But don't talk yourself out of it. Okay. Now Ketu is transiting your 11th house. Loud airplane. I don't know if you can hear that. Transiting your 11th house, your social house, and Ketu has this withdrawal energy. So you may find that you're hanging out with friends less, or you're online on social networks, Facebook, whatever, less. So you can focus on your passion, so you can do your creative projects, so you can have or be with children. It doesn't feel negative in any way. It's really like I feel it pulling the energy, like in my mind's eye, pulling the energy into your 5th house so you can create what you want to create, whatever that is. So don't be surprised if, you just decide you want to socialize less. Sometimes the universe just makes it happen. And like, let's say you had an online community and they closed down, or, your social groups, whatever they may be, like they're meeting less often. Sometimes it just happens. So you just automatically have the extra time and space to focus on your passions and what you want to create. Okay. Oh, I should also mention fifth house is the house of romance. So for you Aquariuses who are single and dating, that could mean a lot of dates, a lot of dating for you. And then with Rahu in your 11th house, less hanging out with friends because you're dating. So that's how that dynamic can play out in that way. Okay, moving on. Pisces. Pisces Rahu is transiting your 4th house of home, family, property, past lives, ancestors. And Ketu is transiting your 10th house of career. So there's this shift of energy between home and work, basically. Rahu transiting your 4th house. So sometimes, actually, I've seen this quite a bit in client readings, when there's this Rahu Ketu, especially Rahu in the 4th and Ketu in the 10th, or at least on this axis, there's some sort of shift between work and home. Now, with Rahu in your 4th house, it may be that you move home and that pulls you away from your job or makes you shift your career path, because Ketu has this sort of withdrawal energy and he's in your 10th house of career. Or it may be that some Pisces, you start working from home, so you're pulled away from your career in that way, though you're still working, you're still on your career path, but there's this shift, like this exchange dynamic going on between your 4th and 10th house. Other Pisces, it may just be that your focus is now on your family and you're pulling away from your career. So maybe you have a small family, maybe you just want to be with your family more. So children, it could be parents. This is also the house of mother. 10th house, some people think it's 9th house. It depends, but 10th house is one of the houses that's considered father. So it could be you have to pull away from work to take care of your mother, or withdraw from work because there's parents you need to take care of, if that's making sense. But it could be taking care of family. Let me sum it up that way. I'm also getting that some Pisces may just want to focus on their actual physical home. You may just find yourself home more, so hopefully this doesn't happen, but it could be, there's withdrawal from the career path because you're unemployed, so you have extra time to work on your home, to take care of your home, maybe paint the walls, redecorate your home while you're looking for new work. But this isn't a transit that guarantees, you'll be unemployed, you're not working, and there's other things going on, and this is just one isolated, or I guess two transits going on that are affecting your chart. It depends on what planets you have here and so on in your natal chart. But there is this, I just keep doing this interactive play between career and home, with the emphasis going more on being at home more, being with family more, working from home instead of working outside the home, or working more from home and less outside the home, or a shift of your career from what it was into something more personal that you want to do. Or even for some, it could be going into a family business. Okay, which could be real estate. 4th house is real estate as well, property, the actual physical properties. You can even say vehicles, cars. So it could be shifting your career into real estate, selling cars, yachts, I don't know, big vehicles. That's another possibility too. All right, Pisces. Aries. So Aries, North Node, Rahu. Rahu is transiting your 3rd house of communication, community, short distance travel, commuting, weekend trips, things like that. But strongly, it's a house of communications, how you connect to people in your community. So it's a house of neighbors. It also includes siblings, and communication in any way, writing, speaking, telephone, email, texting. It's also writing, as in writing books, writing blogs, and so on. So you have Rahu transiting this 3rd house, and you have Ketu transiting the opposite house, the 9th house. 9th house is a house of religion, spirituality, life philosophy, foreign travel. It's also publication, higher education, law, politics. That sums it up. You can go on and on, of course. Now, with Rahu transiting your 3rd house, Aries, there is a headstrong drive to say what you want to say. And I'm saying it that way, not a headstrong drive just to communicate, but to express yourself. You want people to know how you feel about things, what you think about things, your opinion on things. Yeah, so if like you may already have this, but if you want to like start up a blog where you're reviewing things, like your opinion on things, a review blog for a book review blog, for example. You could do that. You'll feel the energy to do it. To express your opinion on things, not necessarily in a negative way, hopefully in a positive way or a balanced way. It can play out either way. Depends on what you choose, your free will, choose to emphasize. But there's really like expressing yourself, getting, I want to say getting the words off your chest. You know, the phrase like, I got to get this off my chest. You need to say it to someone. Like you just want to say what you need to say to people. And I will caution, because Mars is your ruler and Mars is conflict. Yeah, check yourself, check in with your choices and your free will. And say, do I want to communicate this in a harsh way, or can I convey my, let's say, frustration or disagreement in a harmonious and balanced way? So keep that in mind. And it could be with Rahu transiting this third house also, because it's short distance travel, that in this next year and a half, you find yourself doing a lot of weekend trips, or you have to commute more for work, or you're driving, you know, say you have kids and now you're driving them here and there. So a lot of driving around, a lot of moving around the neighborhood or the surrounding neighborhoods. That can happen as well for some Aries. Now, Ketu, as I mentioned, is in your 9th house, of spirituality, religion, philosophy, higher education. Ketu is the spiritual seeker. He does have withdrawal energy. He does bring in past experience. And I'm actually feeling for a lot of Aries, of course, this won't play out for every Aries out there because everyone's natal chart looks different and different stages of life. But I am feeling less emphasis, and I want to say it that way. It's not, I don't want to say withdrawal, but there's less emphasis, concern, to want to put your energy into things like higher education or spirituality or religion. It doesn't mean it's totally gone from your life if that's a part of it. But because there's so much, there's a pull to where Rahu is, and that's your 3rd house. There's a pull to communicate, to write, to express yourself in some way, to go on a bunch of weekend trips. And it's possible, you know, some of those weekend trips might be little retreats, spiritual retreats, and that's a way to kind of balance this energy out. But I am feeling like, yeah, less emphasis on 9th house matters. And 9th house is also things like politics. So you just may be like, I'm not going to read the news. Yeah, I'm not interested. It's just no good. I can't stand politics right now. Or, you know, maybe you thought about going back to school and getting another degree and you're like, I'm going to put that on hold. Or you've recently completed one. So you're like, taking my energy away from that. Now I can write my story or my experience and express myself now that I'm not busy with school. So it could be you're done with something in 9th house energy. And now it's into 3rd house, communication, expressing yourself, saying you want to say, what you want to say, and getting things off your chest, hopefully in a balanced and compassionate way. Okay. All right. Thank you, Aries. Moving on, last but not least, Taurus. So Taurus, Rahu is transiting your 2nd house. And Ketu is transiting your 8th house. So 2nd house is the house of money, gains, finances, possessions. I call it the house of stuff, and you have Rahu here. So this, it's an isolated transit. You know, there's other transits going on. And it depends on, you know, what your natal chart looks like, what's going on here. But Rahu transiting the 2nd house of gains, I mean, there's a lot of drive. You know, Rahu is material drive. A lot of drive, a lot of ambition to bring in gains. 2nd house is a very material house. So it can be a great year for money coming in. Now, this isn't specifically gains from your career, though sometimes there's often an overlap there. But it can be bonuses from work, especially, you know, unexpected gains, things you haven't worked hard for. Again, sometimes there's often an overlap, but bonuses coming in, you know, gifts coming in, money gifts, possession gifts, because it is a house of stuff. It could be, you know, your family's like, hey, we're going to give you our dining room table set. And you're like, okay. It could be, you know, you win some money, you win some stuff. Just gains coming to you. But again, Rahu is here. So you have a lot of drive to bring in gains. And I often put like investments in this second house because you're not necessarily working to bring money in. You're investing your money in something to bring in gains. So this is good energy. You know, if you like invest in the stock market, I do sometimes include investing in real estate here, but it depends on your chart. But it is an investment where you're not at work at a desk earning the money, right? You're investing in something to bring in gains later on. So it is a good transit to invest in some way to bring in more gains as well. Now, Ketu is there in your 8th house, which is a house of loss. And in that sense, you know, if it's lost materially, financially, Ketu withdraws. So it's like moving away from loss, if that makes sense. It's also a house of death, change, transformation, the esoteric, the occult, the metaphysical, big changes. And Ketu here, so one, Ketu here as the spiritual seeker could also mean that there's a part of you that wants to explore and dive into esoteric things. It's a house of research, to dig deep. But I am feeling more of the withdrawal energy, like it may be set aside or less emphasized this year and a half during this transit because there's so much energy, because right, they're on the axis, Rahu and Ketu work together, so much energy and focus and material drive towards material gains this year or year and a half. Yeah, so, you know, if you've had interest, let's say in astrology, which is like part of 8th house, esoteric, metaphysical, occult things. You've had some interest in learning astrology. It's just because there's so much, like you're busy working the stock market, or you're busy, I don't know, enjoying the gains you come in, or whatever you're doing to try to bring in more gains. And again, it could just happen with this energy that you're not putting as much energy into those 8th house matters. Hoping that makes sense. Even though there's a deep spiritual yearning to explore it. But I just keep seeing this image of like books being put aside. Books being put aside. Deep inner transformational process. Taking a break from it, if you've been going through deep inner journey, taking a break from it. And sometimes we need that to let it sort of incubate and process, which I kind of would include with Ketu energy. And just focusing more on the physical and material life right now to just give your psyche a break. But yeah, I see these books being set aside. So less time, less energy doesn't mean it's totally, I don't see them like being thrown out, right? Just set aside to focus more on the practical everyday stuff of physical material life, because there are gains coming in. There are lots of gains coming in. Now, this doesn't mean every Taurus is going to like be a millionaire or anything, but gains are coming in different ways. Money, stuff. And also, I want to point this out, 2nd house is a house of self-worth. So this could be you're gaining a stronger sense of self-worth right now. And our self-worth is often a reflection of what we think other people think of us, though it should come from within, right? And I think this is also why I'm kind of seeing like and feeling sort of less energy, withdrawing away from the energy of 8th house, which is quiet inner stuff. And more on, okay, I'm out here in the world. I'm gaining my sense of self-worth. I'm gaining my sense of value in the world. And though I am still working on this inner stuff, it's like coming out of a shell. Coming out of a shell. Okay. I'm hoping that's making sense, Taurus. But again, this is just, 1 or 2 transits. how everything's going to look for you specifically in the next year and a half and beyond, or just even this year, will depend on your own natal chart and getting a personal reading of how all the planets are interacting in your chart, and the planets in your own chart. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this little Rahu and Ketu transit discussion. Just a little bit for each sign so you get an idea of where this emphasis is going on for you for the next year and a half. I will be doing later in the year a video on, from the Vedic astrology perspective, of the overlap of Jupiter and Sagittarius, or Jupiter and Sagittarius, Jupiter and Saturn. They're both in Sagittarius for a tiny bit towards the end of the year. And then they're together in Capricorn in and out in 2020 and a little bit into 2021. So it'll be a video on Jupiter and Saturn together in a little in Sagittarius and a lot more in Capricorn, if that's making sense. So Jupiter has a funky transit coming up where he retrogrades back through signs quite a bit. He's not just so solidly in one sign for, approximately a year. So I will have a video of that coming up. It'll be later in the year as we get closer to that first conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in Sagittarius in one sign. But that's towards the end of 2019. And so I'll come out with those individual videos for each sign for that. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing, and I'll see you back here soon.